Welcome! This is Selesnia Enchantment Aggro. If we look at the full name, I actually named it Selesnia Enchantment Aggro 2.0. We can't see the full name, so fuck me, I guess. Um, what's important to look at here is this is 2.0, but what I mean with 2.0 is that I made a deck, it's Selesnia Enchantment Aggro. Now I made a second deck that's also Selesnia Enchantment Aggro, and I think this deck is better than the first deck. Yeah. So what's to look out for? This deck is first of all I want to give a disclaimer. There are some I don't know how many you're supposed to play off certain cards. I played this deck quite often and I'm still not sure, right? Because for example, I just cannot tell if Setessan Training is better or worse than Angelic Gift. And I cannot say if you need 3 or 2 Banishing Lights, if you even want to play a Banishing Light, or if you just want to play a pacifism effect, then I think you want to play Hydra's Growth. But can you search for Saga? Yes, you can, but I'm not sure if the first Iroan games is better than Hydra's Growth. I know that this is the first games is more card draw, it's more value, right? But Hydra's Growth is just a literal stomp, right? If you get this on something like turn 3 or turn 3 I think is the earliest we can get it down, then it punches some real face. And how does it do that, right? Our one drops are Athletes of Life's Bounty, Karametra's Blessing, and Sentinel's Eyes. Sentinel's Eyes I actually really like with Dawn Evangel because if I put it onto a 2-drop or a 1-drop and that 1-drop dies, I get the 2-drop or 1-drop back because of this creature's effect. And then I can just cast this from the graveyard again onto the creature, essentially making it infinite as long as I have cards in my graveyard to exile so that I can replay this. Then we have an Eidolon of Obstruction here. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure if I am only supposed to play one. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to play more. I'm not sure if I'm even supposed to play any of them. If you take this deck to BO3, then I would definitely tell you to put put this card into the sideboard, right? If there is still any Planeswalker deck lingering around and you get multiple of these onto the battlefield, then this is a really, really powerful effect. Then Starfield Mystic, one of the most busted creatures in this entire deck. And I'm not kidding, right? Because literally every card except for this and this is an enchantment. Even the creatures are enchantments, meaning that everything is cheaper, everything is faster, all the glitters is stupid. Because if we start with an Athlete of Life's Bounty and then we have an all that glitters and we enchant the bounty. I'm only calling it bounty, the name is too long. Then we already have a 3/3 lifelinker. And we don't really care about the lifelink part, except for the fact that now we don't necessarily care if he swings in our face. So that's something beneficial. And then we just keep on pumping out enchantments, right? And this thing is just going to get bigger. Then we have the Angelic Gift, which is going to draw us a card, meaning that it might get us the lands that we need because we usually want to have 4 or more lands, and it's weird to say that even though we only have 3, our top CMC is 3, but this I'm gonna get to it why we need more lands than 3 actually. That same thing is with the Setessan Training, and I said before, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to play 4 of those or 4 of these, simply because these are 2 really similar effects. But for example, if the opponent has a Brazen Borer can only block creature that is flying, not something on the ground. And I know that flying, less creatures have flying, but at the same time, you can get your creatures big enough, especially with the Hydra's Growth, that trample might just be good enough, especially because it doubles. The effect of this card is that it puts a counter onto a creature and then it doubles all of the counters that are on those every upkeep. Every upkeep that you have, not also your opponent's, and it would be busted. The really cool thing of this is that Starfield Mystic gets a +1/+1 counter every time an enchantment goes to the graveyard. Meaning that if one of our enchantment creatures goes to the graveyard, it also gets a counter. So this could already have 1, 2, maybe even 3 counters when we put this on. So then it gets this, for example, like third counter, and then in our upkeep it doubles to 6, which is a lot. Then Dawn Evangel, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce that. If someone could enlighten me, that would be great. Um, as I already said, it's just extreme value with getting creatures back and just pumping them out again. Maybe after a board wipe, for example. Like, this is something that we went like, oh shit, this is a control deck. We have like 3 creatures on the battlefield. We just slap this out as well. Maybe have like 2 Sentinel eyes, one like Setessan Training on something, and then he board wipes, and we get just 3 creature cards back. If one of them was a Starfield Mystic, we can literally just play this and then pump out the other 2 for 4 mana in total, and we have our nearly our board back. The most important creature, presumably, or what I believe to be in this deck, is the Setessan Champion, though, even though the Starfield Mystic is just insane, simply because every time you play an enchantment, you put a counter on this creature and you draw a card. Again, the counter works with the Hydra's growth, or it just works with itself simply because it racks up really, really fast, and the draw a card is insane. It works also fantastic with seasons, a season of growth. If you have both of these on the battlefield at the same time, you're actually going to draw your heart out. Like, I'm not even kidding, because if you play, for example, Alseid of Life's Bounty, it enters the battlefield, you scry 1 for seasons of growth, and then because Bounty is still it's an enchantment creature, Setessan Champion is actually going to trigger and allows us to draw a card for which we have just scryed for. Now, if we actually then play something like an aura, for example, the Eyes, Angelic Gift, or the Training, then we not only draw a card from Seasons of Growth simply because we target something. Again, here's the effect. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, you draw a card. But then when it also enters the battlefield, for example, with Sentinel's Eyes, we're going to draw a card of that effect. Now, if it's a gift or a training, then we're going to draw another card simply because that's the effect of the card. So our card draw is just insane as long as this is on the battlefield. That's also the reason why we're playing Karametra's Blessing. There is a different card that gives protection, and even though protection is really nice, we already have protection in the form of the bounty, which we can sack for 1 and then give protection to one of our creatures. Yes, it doesn't hit the champion if we don't enchant the champion, but we have so many auras that it is doable, I would say. I'm not sure if we should play more or less. Up until now, 2 was always good because I had otherwise this on the battlefield. Then Siona, Captain of the Pyleas. She's in here because she tutors for auras. You could put the 3 mana 1/2 that actually tutors for auras. This only looks at the top 7 cards, so there is the potential to whiff. But the huge upside of Siona is that she actually gives you 1/1 white humans whenever you attach an aura to something, meaning that it can give you necessary blockers, it can give you just more creatures, and if those creatures die, the tokens, and you have enchanted them, for example with the Eyes, then Dawn Evangel is actually going to trigger, and you can decide for a 2-drop or cheaper in your graveyard and put it back into your hand, which is massive. Then Banishing Light, it's simply an O-ring. What that means is that you exile a non-land permanent until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. There are other options. There is, for example, Prism Realm, which says you exile a creature or a planeswalker, but because this set is mainly focused on enchantments, I decided for this. You could also go for something like an effect that is more pacifism like, making the creature not being able to attack, block, or activate their abilities. Then Hydra's growth, as I said, just to make them big. Another interaction which just makes the decision even harder is that this is a saga, meaning a saga and as soon as their last chapter is complete, they actually go to the graveyard and give a counter to Starfield Mystic, which is extremely powerful because not only is it cheaper, in this case, it produces potentially a 4/4 in stats, draws you 2 cards, and creates a gold creature token. It also gives you just another +1/+1 counter. Then there aren't really a whole lot of different things that I consider putting into this deck, except for, again, this one spell. Here the one spell that gives protection instead of the Karametra's Blessing. And the I think that's basically it. Most of the issues are just deciding how many cards you want to have of each one of them, simply because it is so close. And I'm I'm like really sure that this is something. Obviously, I cannot promise you 100% if this is going to be one of the meta decks, because if there is going to be an extreme like control-y deck, then this is kind of Enchantment Storm, and Destiny Spinner helps you in that aspect as well, because it says that creatures you control can't be countered. And if you ever flood out, or if you have just a lot of lands, you can just, for 4 mana, make an elemental creature out of one of your lands, and it has the stats depending on how many enchantments you have, which in our case will be a lot. So maybe you will come up with a better build. Obviously, I would like to see something fast, something aggressive, similar to this build. I understand that you can take this into a whole nother direction, play it more as a, not necessarily as a control deck, but more as a mid-range deck, where you actually just rely on the Setessan Champion to keep you over those early to middle stages, to keep you engaged, keep bringing you more removal, keep bringing more auras, more buffs for your creatures, to deny the opponent, get some extra value. But I definitely think that there could be something done with simple and sure brute force and aggressiveness. If you have any idea how that deck would look like, which card you believe I should maybe put into this deck, maybe what I should take out of this deck, then let me know. I would like to know. I would like to try it, right? So that you don't have to waste your wild cards on it. But I believe that these cards, especially because most of them aren't really that special. In fact, I believe Starfield Mystic is going to hurt your rare card value bank, because I do not think that this card will see play in any other form of deck. It is simply way too niche. It is just a case that this deck is like 90% enchantments, and that's why it's good. Otherwise, I believe that, yes, this deck is an 8 rare card. Obviously, you don't have to play Temple card. You don't have to play Castle Ardenvale. I just think that one Castle Ardenvale is fine, because especially because we have 12 plains and only 7 forests. I mean, 11 forests, but these are temple gardens. Then I do not play the Skrylands, simply because I kind of want it to be aggro, so we need that like at least 2, 3, and then forwards going stages. This, by the way, is the common card that I talked about. You could easily interchange it with the Siona. I just don't see fit of it. And this is also the reason why I, at the beginning, at the iteration of this deck, I didn't play Banishing Light. I actually played Sky Tether, which is a 1 mana enchantment card. Where is it? Which basically says that a creature has Defender and loses Flying, and I played 4 Angelic Gifts, and then my endgame plan was to just draw through my deck and find at least one All That Glitters and an Angelic Gift, and then just fly over the creatures from my opponent. Sadly, the problem that I realized is that my opponents have Planeswalkers, and I can't give Planeswalkers Defender, so that idea died relatively quickly. Again, if you have any advice for this deck, please post it in the comments, and I would really like to hear about them, I guess. Read them. Yeah, read them. That's the correct word. Yeah, I would really like to read those comments. I would really like to get that thought of yours and maybe improve on this deck. So I guess see you soon, hopefully.